All right, now having created the majority of the overall shape of this object, there's one extra space that we need to cut away, and then there's some holes that we need to add to this shape. The next step can be done in several different fashions, and what I think it's important to do is take a look at which requires you the fewest steps. If I come and look down at this from the top view, I need to cut along all of these edges in order to remove this material. If I decide to use the push-pull tool from the front surface, I can push-pull only one time and actually draw one increment, one mark, and push-pull this material back right where it needs to be. So I'm going to do it that way. And again, there's multiple ways to do this correctly. I'm just always trying to maximize my efficiency. So in this case, I know 1, 2, 3 inches in, I have this surface, and then it's being pushed back 1.5 units back along the y-axis. You can also see that it's 1.5 because there's half-inch increments identified here from which this edge also lines up with. So 1.5, well, roughly 1.5 over here. There's no solid indication of that, and an additional 1.5 marked over here, just to make sure you're creating this to the proper size. Now, when I clicked back into my window, and this may happen to you, I've accidentally clicked and loaded my push-pull tool and messed up this document. Another keyboard shortcut you need to get very comfortable with is the Apple or Command. It's the first button to the left or right of your spacebar, and the letter Z is your edit undo. This is significantly faster than coming up and finding your edit undo every time you make a mistake, because you will make clicks or create lines in which you need to fix in SketchUp, and Command Z should become your best friend when it comes to the creation of new objects. Now, as I noted before, looking at the original PDF, I want to come in 3 inches, so I'm going to come in from the bottom corner, making sure I'm on the green dot, moving in the red direction, which in this case is the x-axis, and hitting 3. And I got to float over until I find the green dot, so I know I'm on the end point of that line which I've just created. Now I'm going to float up, and I'm going to draw a line along the z-axis, and it identifies this entire corner which I'm about to remove. Again, you can click the push-pull tool or hit the letter P to load your push-pull tool. And I need to push this surface back 1.5 inches. Again, single clicks, type in the value, and you'll end up working much more accurately when you're loading your data. Now that we have that portion removed, let's identify where these circles are going to go. And when working with circles, it's important to understand you must find where the center is going. The easiest element of the circle to when it comes to creation is where is the center, and then everything else can fall into place around that. So where's the center of our circle? Well, if I track this edge back and I continue it back, I can see that this circle is the center of this circle is right along the edge of this front edge. So again, if I come back into here, I can see that that's where my circle will fall. And then I can also see that I'm 1 inch in from the back edge, half-inch unit, or half-inch increment will find me to the center of that circle. So coming back into SketchUp, first thing I'm going to do is draw a reference line across my object. Alright, so that's where the center is going to fall somewhere along this line, and then I'm going to come from the back edge in 1 unit, 1 inch, and find my center. So right there is going to be the center for my circle, and I can come up here and grab my circle tool, and with a single click I can drag out to the appropriate size. Now, when using the circle tool in the bottom right hand corner, it always states you're working with a radius. So if you're working with a radius and the directions told us we had a 1 inch diameter, we need to make sure we divide by 2, pretty simple, to get to our half-inch radius when the entire circle's diameter is 1. Hopefully that's not a new concept for you. Once that is done, I can come back in here, and I'm actually going to use the eraser tool this time. I can click and use the eraser tool on those lines to eliminate them, or I can use my arrow tool by selecting and hitting the delete button on my keyboard, an additional way to go about eliminating some data, or actually some lines that we've created. Now, with this first item, and the one thing I dislike about this object is it's pretty tough to determine exactly where this circle is. But again, if we're going to assume that we're going to deal with only half or whole units, I'm going to assume that from this edge into this nearest edge of the circle is going to be 1/2 inch, just like we had along the back edge over here. We can also see that the distance over here and on this side of the circle are definitely different, so I can't say it's centered. It's the one area I wish there was one extra measurement or indicator as to where the center of that circle fell. But I'm feeling pretty confident that it's the center of the circle is 1 inch in from this corner and also 1 inch in from the front edge. So we'll go about marking the center of that object. So I'm going to walk in 1 inch from the front edge, and that puts me into this corner 1 inch. And then I'm also going to walk out into the object 1 inch. And I've now got the center of this circle identified, from which I can click and create my circle. Now you could type in 1/2 inch, or because you've used a 1 inch line to find the center, I can come back out to the midpoint, and the blue dot is 1/2 inch away from the center of that circle. And I can now click and again create my circle. With that being completed, I can take a look quickly and see that this is almost identical isometric view of this object minus the completion of the hole. And these holes must be cut all the way through the object. And a quick way to do that again is to use the push-pull tool and to select that surface. Now, in order to accurately apply the push-pull tool, yes, I can push it down, and I can actually push it down to where it appears to be going all the way through. But this has a number of possibilities. In this case, I'm going to click, and we'll check out and see what actually happened here. Well, if I rotate beneath the object, I can see that I've push-pulled too far. And if it goes through too far, it's going to begin adding material once it reaches the bottom edge of the object. So I'm all the way through, plus there's an additional bit of material at the bottom, which we do not want. So I'm going to Command Z that, and I'm also going to go back to my isometric view, which I just had. And the most accurate way to create this hole and to ensure it goes all the way through without creating additional material is to come down and actually float on the edge I want it to stop at. In this case, I'm going to float on the bottom edge here and click. And what it will do is ensure that my push-pull tool ends on that surface or on that edge. And I can do the same thing with the other one. And if I float anywhere along the bottom surface of this object and click, I will be ensured that the hole goes all the way through without creating extra material. All right. I'm going to go back and hit Command 7 once again to put me in the isometric view. I'm going to double check that I've got everything taken care of. I got all my cutouts, all the geometry looks correct, all the sizes and shapes look good. I can even see that that circle appears to be right in the proper location. These documents prior to submission should be saved and should be saved using your name. So I'm going to hit Save As. I'll title it my last name, Siggins. And the number of the assignment, in this case it's number 1. I'm just saving it to my desktop. You can follow directions given in class.